Brand new chapter, and we're going to deal with triangles in this chapter. There's tons of triangles. So let's make this a little bigger so we can see it a little bit better. What we're going to do is this. It says classify the triangle. So really right now we're going to do a little bit of math on this, not a whole lot. Most of this is just telling what type of triangle it is. I need your attention. It's telling what kind of triangle it is. It's classifying. This is what the phrase they use. So I'm writing it down. So on a quiz or a test, it's going to say this on there. On your homework, on your worksheet, it's going to say this. It's going to say classify the triangle two different ways. So we're classifying triangles two different ways. The first way is classifying triangles by their angles. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn some names. We're going to learn some names of triangles. And we're going to name them. But right now, the first group of triangles we're going to learn is by their angles. What kind of angles are in that particular triangle? Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. The second way that we're going to name the triangle, what kind of things are in a triangle? We got angles and what else? Sides. So we're going to classify our triangles by its sides. So first, we're going to talk about by the angles, okay? So let's write this down. Classify by the angles. All right, so we're going to look at the picture, and then we're going to, let me copy that. We'll put it down here so I can, right there. Okay, so let's take a look at this first triangle. This is the first type of triangle that we're going to do, so you might want to keep a little list of these. They're not that difficult. Let's look at the angles. We're classifying by the angles, correct? So on this particular triangle right here, let's look at the angles. What kind of, we'll call this triangle ABC. What kind of angles do we have on angle A? What kind of angle is angle A right here? It's an acute. What about B? It's acute. What about C? It's acute. So we have what? 3 acute angles. So take a wild guess on what we'll call this type of triangle. We have 3 acute angles. So what do you think we'll call this? Right, we'll call this an acute triangle. All right? I'm not trying to trick you, okay? I'm trying to give you a little hint. So if you have 3 acute angles, we call this an acute triangle. Not just one acute angle, not just 2 acute angles, but how many? 3. All 3. All right? I don't really have to say all because there's 3 angles, but I'm going to say it anyway. All 3 angles are acute angles. So if all 3 are acute angles, it's an acute triangle. Everybody see that? All right? I got some angles already some triangles already drawn here, so let me grab another one. Grab this one right here. All right, and we'll make this one just a little bit bigger. About like that. All right, let's look at this triangle. Let's look at this triangle right here. What kind of angle is this angle right here? That angle right there that I just marked? That's acute. Okay, watch what I'm asking. Okay, don't think what I'm going to ask. Listen to what I'm going to ask. This is an acute angle, and this is what? An acute angle. What kind of angle is this one right here? This is an obtuse angle. All right? So if I have one, listen, I don't have all 3 obtuse angles, do I? I just have one. One obtuse angle. Guess what I'm going to call this triangle then? It's not brain surgery here. It's an obtuse triangle. So the whole triangle is an obtuse triangle. Do we need all 3 angles to be obtuse to be a triangle? No, it's impossible. That's a good point. We're going to talk about that here in a second. Do you need all 3 angles to be obtuse? Do you need 2 angles to be obtuse? No. How many angles do you need for this to be an obtuse triangle? Just one. Just one obtuse angle. Justin said something that's pretty interesting. He said, I said, do you need all 3 angles being obtuse? And he said it's impossible. Any idea why it's impossible? Because it wouldn't add up to 180, right? Now, we haven't talked about that. I don't think, have we talked about this year? I don't think we have. About angles being added up to 180 for a triangle. I don't think, for a triangle we did? I don't think for a triangle. I think for, like, supplementary we did, but not for a triangle. Now, listen. Listen. There's something that I don't think we're learning in this lesson, but this is kind of like, we're just looking ahead a little bit. And this is probably something you learned back in middle school, all right, that all 3 angles add up to how many degrees? 180 degrees on any triangle. Doesn't matter what kind of triangle you have. If I added up all three angles, it'd be 180 degrees. Right? This angle right here, if we say this is obtuse, an obtuse angle has to be what? Bigger than 90, right? More than 90, right? So watch. If I had another angle that was more than 90, is there any way that I could even make a triangle out of it? No, because if this was more than 90 and this was more than 90, just those two angles are going to be what? Bigger than 180. Can you have two angles bigger than 180? You can't even have three angles bigger than 180 in a triangle, can you? So there's no way you could even have two obtuse angles. So there's no way. I mean, try drawing it. Look, here's a side, here's an obtuse angle. Look, if I wanted to make another obtuse angle, is there any way that I could make a, it's not necessarily trapezoid, but is there any way that I could get a triangle out of this with this being an obtuse angle? Is there? No, there's no way. I'd have to draw it like this, and what does that other angle have to be? That other angle has to be acute, doesn't it? All right, so there's no way that I could have two obtuse angles, especially three obtuse angles. Make sense? All right, enough of that. So that's an obtuse triangle. Here's another one. Yep. Let's go up. I got it up here already. Let me just grab it. Copy it and jump down here and paste it. Yes. You have to look at it online. That's why I record it. Here we go. By the angles.
It's the right angle.
I'm not going to repeat everything I just repeated, okay? I can't do that. So just catch up where we are right now. So here's a right triangle, or sorry, I gave it away. Here's a right angle. Here's a right angle, 90-degree angle. So what do you think we're going to call this? If I have one right angle, so if I have one right angle, that makes this a what? A right triangle. A right triangle. Right, these two angles right here are acute, aren't they? They have to be. Is there any way that one of these could be a right and one of these could be obtuse? No, because if this is 90, you can't have another angle that's 90 or bigger, can you? Because then I'd have two angles that were 180 or bigger. So you cannot have one angle being 90 and another one being obtuse. Can you have two angles being 90? No, there's no way. There's no way I can have a triangle and have two angles being 90 because just those two angles together add up to 180, don't they? All right, so there's no way in the world that I could have more than one right angle to have a triangle. So one right angle gives you a right triangle. Okay? Now, how did we classify these? We classified them by their what? By their angles. So those are your angles. There's another one. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm going to do the other one, the next type now. So we classified them by the angles. So what was that? Acute triangle, obtuse triangle, and right triangle. Now we're going to take a look at the sides, and we are going to classify them by their sides. So let's go down here again. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's. I got one right here. I'm going to use. Okay. That's right. That's exactly what we're going to do. So let's take a look right here.
Yeah.
I said that you were right, yes. So let's take a look at this one right here. Here's a triangle. Now, we're not looking at the angles this time. We're going to classify them by their what? By their sides. So let's take a look at the sides. Now, right now, you don't know anything about the sides, okay, unless they tell you, right? You can't just guess. So if I do this and this and this, what do you think is true about all three of those? They're all equal to each other. And let's just label it ABC. So AB is equal to AC, which is equal to BC. So look, all three sides are equal, and so we're classifying it now by its sides. So we call that an EQUI, okay, lateral. Lateral means sides. So it's an equilateral triangle. When what? When all three what? Sides are equal to each other. So when all three sides are equal to each other, then it's an equilateral triangle. Okay? Well, but that would be classifying it by its angles. Right. But that's a good point. Let's bring that up. John said it's also acute. So you're going to have questions on the quiz and the test that says this. Let me see what time it is. Okay. That says classify them by its angles and by its sides. So take a look at this. So let's say this was like number 1 on a quiz. If I said classify this triangle by its angles and by its sides, what would you write? By its angles, it would be acute, good. And then by its sides, it would be what? Equilateral. Okay, and that's basically, you got to put both, because it says classify them by its angles and also by its sides. Okay, so it's an acute angle because of its angles, or sorry, it's acute triangle when we classify it according to its angles, and it's an equilateral triangle when I classify it by its sides. Make sense? Okay, let's do another type of triangle. I can grab this and I can just change this a little bit. I'm going to just bring that in a little like that. Now that bottom side's not the same as the other two now, is it? All right. And yep, you guys have seen this before, so it shouldn't be brand new to you. Watch. If just let's make this thicker. If this side and this side are equal to each other, then how many sides do we have equal? We just have 2. We don't have 3, do we? Okay. So here's actually the definition. When we have at least 2 sides equal, which means at least means what? Means 2 or what? 2 or more. So we have at least 2 sides equal to each other. Here's the name. Now let's spell it right. This is the hardest one to spell out of them all, but let's spell it right. Watch. It's isos and then Scalene. Oops, why did I put an R there? Okay, isosceles. Think of it as 2 different words. Isos, I-S-O-S, isos, and then Scalene, C-E-L-E-S. That C sounds like an S, okay, but it's isosceles. All right, and that's a triangle. That means if 2 sides are equal, it's isosceles. All right, here's another one. It's not obtuse. It's acute. That's acute. There's no obtuse angles here. There's no angles bigger than 90 on this. So if I asked you to classify it by its angles and by its sides, it would be what? By its angles, it would be acute triangle, and it would be an isosceles triangle. Okay? Let's do one more, like this. I'll just draw this one myself. And I'm trying on purpose to make these sides not equal each other. Okay? So none of these sides equal each other. This is probably not, this is one that's not as familiar to you. So watch. This side has 1 tick mark, this has 2, this has 3. So that means that none of the sides are equal to each other. This is kind of a weird one. We don't use it too often, but it's called a scalene triangle. Okay, it's not as popular as the other ones. Equilateral is very popular. Isosceles is really popular. Scalene, there's really not much you can do with scalene. Okay, you just know it. Just know the name of it. Let me do one more. Okay. What's that? What'd you say about it, Frank? Way. Yeah, there's really nothing true about it. It's just the only thing true about it is all the sides are different. That's all. Okay. It was scalene, when none of the sides are equal. I'm running out of time, so let's do this very quick. Watch. If all 3 of these sides are equal, let me show you something. We'll learn this at another point maybe, but if all 3 sides are equal, that means that all 3 angles are also going to be equal. We can prove that later on in another chapter, but for right now, just believe me on this. If all 3 sides are equal, so if this thing is what? Lateral, then all 3 angles are equal. What do you think we call a triangle when all 3 angles are equal? Equal what? Angular. Don't leave yet, because I got to give you a worksheet. Okay.